Hello and welcome to the Buildup here on Balls.ie in partnership with Ladbrokes, where we look ahead to the biggest events of the sporting week. Now, the Olympics are underway in Tokyo. We've just had the opening ceremony. We've got GEA championships in full flight. We've got a lot going on in the world of sport. But through it all, we've got the culmination, I suppose, of the Lions Test series in South Africa. The first test finally here. It's always a long wait until we get there, but it is starting on Saturday in Cape Town. Unfortunately, all three tests will be on Cape Town in an empty stadium, but a Lions tour and a Lions Test match is still a Lions Test match. And delighted to say that we've got 2009 British and Irish Lion Stephen Ferris with us as always, Ladbrokes ambassador as well. Stevie, how are you doing? This is it's Christmas Eve for rugby fans, really, isn't it?
It certainly is. I think last Wednesday, I know we chatted after it, like it was just really whet the appetite for the British and Irish Lions tour officially, in my mind, kicking off. And I know a lot of pundits and different parts of the media have said that as well, but it really has. And I think the squad selection this week, the South Africans going early with their squad selection, almost Rassie Erasmus playing mind games with the master of all mind games, Warren Gatland. He seemed to get in there just ahead of him with the team selection. And then, of course, the team selection was leaked and everything else from the Lions' point of view. But put all that aside, both teams seem like they're ready and ready to go. Khaleesi is back, leaving with South Africans. And, I really think that it's going to be an epic game, one for the ages. I know we've talked about unbelievable games in the past. Maybe that 2009 second test was one of the best ever that I witnessed live. But yeah, this is certainly going to be up there. It's just a pity there's no fans to be able to witness it, but the droves, the millions will be watching it on the TV, I'm sure, because it's one surely not to be missed, Mick.
For sure, yeah. In terms of the coaches, and I don't know. I thought Gatland kind of handled maybe the leaking of the team pretty well, but I'd say he was kind of just slightly annoyed by it. But look, I suppose if the squad knows, then there's no real harm. But in terms of Rassie Erasmus, he seems to be taking snipes. Like he was having a pop on Twitter really weirdly. He responded to an Irish Examiner article about Gatland talking about referees and how they referee the head-to-head collisions, but there's been a few little things there. I definitely get the impression, as you say, that Rassie is definitely just trying to kind of get into Gatland's head here. And they're, coaches, you often think that sometimes the top coaches might be above all of that stuff, and they're just going to go, let's get our team ready and go out there and let's, I know how Gatland is going to shape up and that's how I'm going to beat him. But they're totally trying to absolutely outdo each other in the mind games.
Yeah, they are. And it all started off, didn't it, with the water boy thing with Rassie in the A game. He wasn't even supposed to be involved, and then he's director of rugby for South Africa A, and it was is he not director of rugby for South Africa? Full stop. I remember seeing that flashing up on the screen. But yeah, of course, I think what both coaches are very good at, Mick, is taking the attention off the team and putting it on themselves. And you see that a lot across all sports with the best coaches, that they take on all the responsibility. They, something goes out in the media, it's around Warren Gatland and Rassie at the minute with their teams. And it just lets the players get on with their own jobs instead of something else popping up out of the squad. And the players have to answer for it. I think Warren Gatland and Rassie are very, very good at deflecting that onto themselves and off the players. So it's smart by them both, and Warren Gatland is he's been in this game a long time, as has Rassie, but we all kind of know that Warren is very good, especially with Ireland versus Wales, of course, over the years, the mind games that he's tried to play along the way, and he certainly knows what he's up to. But yeah, it's just boiling up nicely, isn't it? But I definitely think that Rassie Erasmus is 1-0 up against Warren Gatland because of that early team announcement. And just to go back on that league team, ever a week that you need your team to be honest, you need your team to be united, you need your team to be committed to each other and nothing to get out into the media. This was the week. This was it. Now, it might not mean anything. Of course, Rassie named the team that was leaked anyway, Warren Gatland named the team that was leaked anyway, and it might not matter. But for me, you need to be more together than that. You need to make sure that you can count on one another off the pitch as well as on it. And at the minute, this week, they couldn't. Somebody leaked the team. whether that's a player, whether that's management, and that's not good enough. And I think Warren Gatland knows that. I think in his press conference he sort of addressed that in a roundabout way.
Yeah.
And next week he will name the team and come out and say to the press straight after, and there'll be no messing around. So, that was a little bit frustrating for me. I was really hoping that it wasn't the team. I'm sure you were the same. You want it to be released to the media, and you go, "Oh, can't wait for the matchups and everything else." Where when it was leaked, it sort of took a small bit away from it. So but here, draw a line under it, move on. That's what he seems to be doing, and fingers crossed, that team that was leaked goes well on Saturday.
Yeah, absolutely. We thought we'd learn the team on Thursday. We actually learned it on Tuesday, and it was confirmed on Wednesday. Brought forward. But what of the team then? I mean, when we speculated last week, we both got some calls, right? You were definitely saying they would go for the line-out jumper at 6. We were hoping it was Tyburn. Courtney Law's a pretty good pick there as well. It's like they were going to go for the third, second row. I said we kind of disagreed over Van der Merwe or Josh Adams. But I think the point on Van der Merwe leads us on to sort of Jack Conan, in that one thing that Warren Gatland's never been afraid to do, Stevie, is make a big call that goes against conventional wisdom based on his own kind of hunches and likes. And you could get the sense over the course of this tour so far that someone like Van der Merwe was in his plans. You knew that Jack Conan was, I just thought that Jack Conan was knocking down the door, but ultimately we know what we get from Falatau. He hasn't done anything wrong. We're going to pick him, But Gatland, he always surprises me by doing the thing he always does,
Yeah, and I don't think Gatland cares at all about pissing people off. He makes the decision that he feels is the best for the team to get the win. And if he feels that Jack Conan is the man, then that's who he's went with. People are questioning Wyn Jones at loosehead over a couple of the other guys. Ali Price at scrum half over Conor Murray. Conor Murray was squad captain a week ago, and now he finds himself on the bench for the first test. A few other ones in there as well that maybe have question marks over them, but you got to hand it to Warren Gatland. He's got more decisions right over his career than he has wrong, and fair play to him for making those ballsy decisions. But that's what makes a good coach. And you touched on a couple of the back rowers, and we talked about Courtney Laws, and I certainly felt, even from winding the clock back 12 years to 2009 with Tom Croft getting in there, a really good athlete, brilliant line-out operator. They went with the second row at number 6 in Courtney Laws. I know he's played a bit in the back row. He wouldn't be as mobile. He's certainly a bit more, he plays in the open game a lot more like a second row than he does a back row, but having that line-out option it's really, really valuable for the Lions. However, from an Irish perspective, I think Tadhg Beirne can play that role even better. I think he gives that line-out option exactly the same as Courtney Laws does, but he offers a lot more around the field. He's so good over the ball. He's thrown 7 offloads in the Lions matches to date. Courtney Laws has thrown 2. Just with their handling as well, I certainly feel that Tadhg Beirne's a bit more of a better ball player, can put somebody that tip-on pass, especially with a rough defence from the South Africans that you're going to need. He can certainly give that. He just, Tadhg Beirne for me, he's making line breaks as well. You're seeing him in the middle of the pitch, putting straight through defences. And we haven't seen as much of that with Munster or with Ireland, maybe a bit more with the Scarlets, 2016-17 season. But yeah, I think he can feel a little bit hard done by, but saying that, Courtney Laws is already a test lion, and maybe Warren Gatland's just going for that little bit of experience. And Jack Conan will be packing down alongside Courtney Laws in the back row with Tom Curry. And just to go back to your initial points on Jack Conan, he thoroughly deserves his place. He's been phenomenal. He's the highest meters gained out of the forwards with ball in hand. He's scoring tries. He looks like he's got a spring in his step. All those injuries that he's had seem to be long forgotten about. And it's funny the way things work, isn't it? Look at Caelan Doris, picking up a knock, getting injured, or with his HIA, that opens the door for Jack Conan to come in. Jack Conan plays really well. Now, test started for Ireland, and boom, a couple of months later, he's starting the first test with British and Irish Lions. So when you're given an opportunity, you do your damnedest to try and take it. And Jack Coleman's certainly done that. And I wouldn't be betting against him to get a man of the match performance this weekend because he's in a rich vein of form.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a mind actually when I saw that he was on the team of him sitting on his own at the advertising boards at the World Cup when he was sitting there knowing that his World Cup was over. And I think it might have been in the warm-up, was it? I just remember him definitely sitting on his own, and you're thinking that he didn't play for Ireland for 18 months after that to go to be a test starter in the first. It's an incredible story. On the back row, though, on the back row dynamics, and we're talking about maybe Laws or Byrne, I wonder, is there an element of Tadhg Byrne being an explosive option off the bench that maybe Gatland wants to hold in reserve? But I saw Simon Thomas, the Welsh rugby journalist, on Twitter making an interesting point, and it's something that you'd know a lot more about than me, asking if the Lions are a little bit short at somebody to get over the ball for the breakdown, that maybe Tom Curry, while he has all of these incredible attributes, maybe doesn't have what Navidi would offer there or what Hamish Watson would offer, and Courtney Laws doesn't even offer on the other side of it what Tadhg Byrne might in that particular regard. They're probably not lacking for it outside of the back row, if you know what I mean, but that's where your bread and butter is as a back row forward, to go and do that, especially when you have the tight there on the other side, just causing chaos, you would imagine.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting point, but like you look at the South Africans, like Khaleesi isn't fantastic over the ball. Like he makes his tackles. He's made in the Rainbow Cup 50 out of his last 52 tackles. Like he very rarely misses a tackle, but he doesn't make too many turnovers. Steph Toy is a guy who makes a tackle, and then on the back end of the tackle is up on his feet, causing chaos, trying to break through the rock, and it's just a complete nightmare around the breakdown. And Quagga Smith, as we've talked about before, playing all his rugby out in Japan, he's not amazing over the ball. So I think actually the Lions team, Curry, yes, he's not a Navidi, he's not like a Keith Gleeson that used to play for Leinster back in the day. He's not somebody that just goes around trying to steal ball to breakdown. I think you need a little bit more of that. He's a brilliant ball carrier. He's very robust, very explosive and powerful. And that's what you need. You need to meet fire with fire against these South African boys. And I think it's the right selection for me. And I think it's the right selection at 7 because Hamish Watson on the bench also, when he wants to run a little bit more sideways in the second half, the game opens up a bit more. He's able to fend a few people off and maybe get a sneaky offload away. That would be the time for him to come in. I don't think it's the time 5 or 6 minutes into the game when 5 or 6 South African lads are trying to chop you in two. So, I think he's got the back row selection right. I have to admit, I thought he would have went with Faletau just because he's been proven over the years, but he hasn't been playing particularly well. He does have a lot of miles on the clock too. Like he's played a serious amount of rugby over his career. For me, I think the back row selection is right. However, that 6 jersey, maybe would have went with Tadhg Byrne, but I don't think there's too much in it.
Yeah, absolutely. There's lots of other selections to do. Like, it's funny, all 3 Scottish selections, I kind of don't begrudge any of them. You could have had Josh Adams, you could have had Liam Williams, you could have absolutely had Conor Murray. You see where he's going from with the Ali Price thing. They haven't had a Lions test starter since Tom Smith in 2001, which is just an incredible thing, really. It's like it's been far too long for one of only 4 countries in there. And it is hard to say that they don't deserve a real rooting interest, I suppose, in the Lions this year. Explain what Ali Price brings to maybe the layperson that is, that tells a little bit on what the Lions' game plan is going to be. How is he so different to Conor Murray?
Like, Conor Murray's been a pragmatic scrum half for the last, 6-7 years. Very much a brilliant box kicker. Hasn't made a break around the side of the rock, doesn't really challenge the first couple of defenders. He gets the ball, stands up, and slings it to the first receiver, whether that's a forward or whether that's the out half. And he's been doing that for such a long time. Now, when you play a game plan like Ireland have done over the last, nearly a decade, that is worth its weight in gold because it's so accurate and it's the way that they played. And he suited into that game plan, especially under Joe Smith. But Ali Price, there's a clip at the weekend, and they come down to about the 15-metre line, and on the 15-metre line, it is always important to try and go again, just not try and play from 15 to 15 and not make the defence fold around the corner. They're just getting back up on their feet and seeing another couple of guys running at them. And he went down the blind side, and he went down and sort of just 3 or 4 steps, and the next thing, somebody steps out of the line, and he gets the offer to win. I think it was actually Jack Conan on the inside, and before you know it, there's 15-metre break up the blind side, and that's what he offers. He challenges the defence. He's very nippy, pacey around the breakdown. You're not going to say that Conor Murray is pacey around the breakdown, because he's not. He's got, I'm sure Ali Price would love to have Conor Murray's box kick, because I don't think Ali Price's box kicking is as good as Conor Murray's. But if you're going to go out and you're going to play a style of rugby that I think Warren Gatland wants to play with this team selection, then Ali Price is the guy to try and make that happen. He's been fairly good on this tour. Yes, he makes a few mistakes, but that's because he's trying things. And it's an interesting one, Mick, and I know a lot of people have talked about it, is that it's this combination at 9 and 10. Like, Ali Price and Dan Biggar haven't played together that much over the last over this tour. And I think it was O'Gara actually was reading a piece, and he was saying like he would fancy Ireland, England, Scotland, or Wales more than he would the British and Irish Lions to win against South Africa on Saturday, because of the combination, the team being able to gel together, that access that they need in the back row. More or less 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. You need to be functioning really well, and this is a wee bit all over the place. But they must be training the house down. Dan Biggar's a solid player, kicks the ball really well, and if Ali Price can get that running game going, get the big runners off him, then hopefully they can get those short yardages close to the ruck that they need to get over the gain line.
Yeah, certainly looks like he's tried to pick on form anyway. I suppose that's always a risk in itself then. But on this, we'll talk about a couple more things. But the South African team, I was just even looking back on tours really quickly there. It's hard to believe that, just by coincidence, that this is the 5th out of 7 Lions tours where the Lions have had played the world champions 2 years after the World Cup. It's actually just remarkable. Like, and even in 2005 they played, New Zealand were probably the best team in the world by that stage again. Only 2013 maybe where they played a slightly weakened Wallabies. But you do see when the South African team was named, as you said early, there was no major surprises there or anything, but just we saw the South African A team a few weeks ago or last week, and you're thinking there's a couple of names that come into there. And when you see the actual names, you see Khaleesi, you see Pollard, you see that front row, and you're thinking, God, this is a formidable team. We haven't seen them play properly in so long, since that World Cup final, really. You forget that this is an amazing South Africa team. Yeah, it's an amazing team. Their preparation hasn't been great. Terrible, yeah. It's a terrible preparation. Georgia, I think they played a Super 15 team as well for their preparation. Struck down with COVID. Khaleesi's been locked up in his room for the last while. He's played five matches in the Rainbow Cup, very limited rugby. They're missing their talisman, Wayne Vermeulen at number 8. They sort of don't know what direction they're going at number 8. Smith one week, and everybody's talking about Kutsia. Would he make it into the squad? He's now nowhere near it. And yeah, there's a few positions that still feel that the beast is retired, obviously, who was unbelievable in that Rugby World Cup final in 2019. But look at the quality of player. Makazola Mapimpi, Lou De Jager, Mbonambi, the hooker, who is a serious operator. Khaleesi, as we've talked about, Smith, Pollard, Malherbe on the bench, who's the best scrummage and tight end prop in the world. Malcolm Marks, who's, I know, started the last game, he's on the bench, he's going to make a huge impact. And, Kitzkoff, I know he was involved in the last game as well. But there's so much talent there, and they're huge men. They bring the power. I think I've heard the word physicality about 1,000 times this week across social media and everything, but I'm going to use it again because they are physicality. They're just so physical. But if the Lions can match it, Mick, if the Lions can match this physicality, if they can close them down, shut them up the first 20 minutes, half an hour, I really think that this Lions team will play the better rugby. And when I say the better rugby, they're not just going to kick the leather off it. They're going to make a couple more line breaks.
We know Cheslin Colby can pull a rabbit out of a hat at times. But I definitely think this Lions team are more skillful. They're better prepared. But if they can just meet that physical battle, then that's where I feel the game is going to be won and lost. As is it's won and lost if Dungannon Rugby Club down the road are playing against Shannon Rugby Club. The physicality stakes. It doesn't matter if it's a club game or if it's the pinnacle, the biggest and best test match, South Africa versus the British Lions. You've got to win the confrontation, and it's going to be epic. And if the Lions can do that, then I think they'll win the game. And if they don't do that, then I think they'll lose the game.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it'll all come down to that kind of physical matchup, of course. But how much a physical matchup can manifest often comes down to who the man in the middle is. Nick Berry is the Australian referee. We've seen a little bit of him, I think, over the years. But, there's been a lot of talk about the TMO and being South African and so on and so forth this week. There's only so much power a TMO has, but the referee defines how a game is played, really.
He does. Nick Berry, just if anybody's watching, just a few of the games that he's actually refereed. He refereed Samoa versus the Maori All Blacks. There's 26 penalties awarded in that game. 10 of those were at scrum. So, how important is the set piece going to be in this match on Saturday? If this is the way Nick Berry is going to game. 4 Super Rugby, the Trans-Tasman games average 21 penalties per game. It's a lot of penalties again. 5 yellow cards and 1 red card. I wouldn't be surprised if there was a red card at some stage over this the next 3 weeks with the test matches. He most penalises action on the offside line. So offside line is his hot thing. The boys in Camp Mick, they'll be going through this referee. Everything that I'm saying here, they already know this. They're going to have a briefing maybe the day before the match to go through exactly what the referee is hot on. Obviously, the coaches will have talked to the referees. The referee might have singled out a certain player, might have said, tag furlongs, bind, it's too long, it needs to be tighter and shorter on the scrum. There might be a few things that he picks out, so they'll address those, and then they'll talk them everything through. But this referee is super, super hot on the offside line. He's big in first phase penalties as well, so that's something straight off the top of a line out, that first phase or off any set piece. 33 of the 85 penalties that he gave in those 4 Super Rugby games were in first phase. So, you've got to be accurate in those first phases with this referee. So there's just a couple of things on Nick Berry. He might be completely different. The way some referees just let things go, see how it unfolds, or he might be an absolute stickler for a couple of things, like the offside line very early on, and the kick chase that we're seeing more of. Players half a yard in front of the kicker, just ambling forward, and they're getting penalised, even though it's not going to have an impact on what unfolds in front of them. They're still being penalised. So it's going to be very interesting. And with this game, Mick, comes huge pressure. So he has to make the right decisions. And that's why the TMO in there is a South African. It was supposed to be an All Black, correct me if I'm wrong, but he's had to cry off and it went with a South African. And he is going to be called upon. There's no doubt, because the referee can't see everything on the pitch. The TMO has all the angles, everything at hand, and he will certainly be having an input. And I know Warren Gatland and the rest of the coaching staff, I think Robin McBride was very vocal today, saying that they weren't too happy with the way it was. I think it was they didn't have a plan B if the Kiwi TMO didn't make it. So yeah, it looks like they didn't have a plan B, or maybe the South Africans did, and that's why they went with the South African TMO. But he will certainly be called upon, and huge pressure on everybody concerned on this match, because they have to get it right.
Yeah, it would worry you, I suppose, more for, I don't know, you kind of think for a grounding or something like that, there's only so much you can do, and everybody will try to be fair. But where unconscious bias might come in is something like intent on a head tackle or something like that. Yeah. You know what I mean? And the where they ask, are there mitigating circumstances? That's where unconscious bias comes in. There's nobody's gone accusing a TMO or a referee of ever of not doing their job properly. But it can come into it a little bit if these guys are so on and so forth. So that's a little bit of a worry. I completely agree with that. as a ball carrier, quickly before we move off the referee, you're happy with an offside line referee, aren't you? Like
Yeah.
The chance to open up the game if everybody kind of plays to it and there isn't too much pinging for it.
Yeah, definitely. Well, there's the South Africans, as we've watched, it's the up and in defence. They don't mind if they're a number or two down. They'll just back themselves to make the tackle, man and ball, shut it down, reset themselves. I don't think they'll commit as many people to the rucks as they did in the South Africa A game. Like that first half an hour, and I know they got a bit of change out of it, but they certainly left themselves a lot of numbers short at times, and got away with it on a couple of occasions. So yeah, I expect them to fill the field a lot more and just come up and smash what's in front of them. And they're such big men and powerful guys that they stop a lot of the time their opposition man right on the gain line or behind it. So lots of impact tackles, or dominant tackles as they're called. We all know what happened to Ireland with the dominant tackles against England in the last number of seasons gone by. It makes a huge, huge difference when you put a good hit and not just tackling around the ankles and soaking those tackles. So yeah, the offside line is hugely important to be refereed correctly for both sides. Mario Toby lives on the edge. Courtney Laws lives on the edge. As does Khaleesi Toy as well. So it's going to be back and forth, I'm sure. But yeah, I think it will. I just hope after the 80 minutes, Mick, that or even when we were chatting next week, the first question that you asked me isn't about the referee and about some of the decisions that he's made. And we can talk about good rugby, because there's been too many of those questions gone by in the last couple of years. And I don't think it's raised his head as much recently with the refereeing decisions. So hopefully we get a good, clean game.
We'll find out tomorrow, 5 o'clock on Sky Sports. We'll have Nigel Owens for company as well, telling us what he's doing all the way through, which I have to say I've enjoyed so far in the in the competition. If you were to call it, Lions are +3 on Ladbrokes. If you were to go, you can take them straight. You can take South Africa. What are you thinking?
Jeez, well, they were +1 the other day.
It's a low +3. I think it looks closer to +2 in terms of the actual odds. So South Africa -3 is 13-10, and Lions +3 is 4-6. So I think that's 3 is the handicap, but I think you're probably looking at closer to a 2 as it's just a number itself. Yeah.
Well, I might try and get my cash out and then go and redo my bet again, Mick. Yeah, like history has shown that it's vitally important to try and win the first test, or of course going to try and win it, but to win the first test, to win the series. And now that hasn't happened for a while. So yeah, like, do you go with your heart? Do you go with your head? Do you go with what you've experienced and played against or played with? Like, I've been there with the Lions, I've been there in South Africa, I've played against South Africa a number of times with Ireland. I know how good they can be. Rassie Erasmus, I've watched the documentary Rising Sun or whatever it's called, like how inspirational he is as a head coach and what it means for these players to represent their country, and everything that's going down in South Africa once again at the minute. They're just constantly, their country is in a world of pain at the minute, and this South African team has another opportunity after the World Cup to give some inspiration back to some of these people that are struggling. I would love to, of course, I'd love to see the Lions win. Of course, I would like to be proved wrong. But I think the South Africans will pip the Lions on Saturday. I think playing sea level and not at altitude will actually benefit the South Africans more than the Lions, because they haven't had as much game time. Everybody talks about, the South Africans want to bring the Lions to altitude because they'll find it so much tougher and everything else. I think it'll actually be more beneficial for the South Africans because of their limited game time. So yeah, to cut that long answer very short, I'm going to go for South African win and for the Lions to win next week and to tee it up nicely for a third test.
We'll take that. We'll take a third test with something to play for one way or another. We'll catch up next week, Stevie, and we'll have a lot of analysis to do and a lot more predictions for test 2. But thanks a million for joining us.
No worries. Cheers, Mick.
Thanks a million to Stevie. If you are having a bet, the lines, the -3 handicap there, it does seem like it's kind of it is in favor of the Lions in terms of the number. So you can get both teams at evens, as you can see on the screen there. as well. So it's all to play for. It's really, really up in the air as to what's going to happen in this game. So we can't wait for it. If you're having a bet on it, please always gamble responsibly. Visit dunlewy.net for more information. We'll be back with Stevie next week when we have the first test to look back on and look ahead to the second test. In the meantime, enjoy the rugby, enjoy the Olympics, enjoy everything that's going on in the world of sports. An absolute packed time. And if you can handle the heat, or if you can't even, just pull the curtains and sit in the sitting room for the whole weekend. We'll talk to you soon.